to be Greg Shaw versus Gavin. Honestly, I don't know Gavin's last name, but we're just gonna go off first names tonight. Gavin. So Greg Shaw versus Gavin. As soon as they are ready, and as soon as the room is up, we'll have them here in a second. So I just want to let everybody know. Just recap today. I know we saw the first game. Bastion beat Charlie. Bastion was playing Throne Room, and then Bastion was playing Throne Room. Charlie was playing Ral Ops, and in the second game, it was Joe Olsen over Justin Branch. Joe was playing Court, while Justin was playing No Idea. Both of them agreed to play no Like My Father Before Me, no map, no ROPS, so that way everybody got to saw something different. So we're about to see game 2 for Greg and Gavin. Greg ended up winning the first game. I believe it was Gavin who played Throne Room. It was a teched out version of Throne Room, and Shaw played ROPS. So a lot of ROPS. So here we go. Gavin is playing Hunt Down. Let's see what Greg is about to show us. And looks like Greg is playing Diplo. Interesting. So no ROPS, no Throne Room. So interesting. So we're about to see this game. So Greg starting, or Gavin going with the 12 card start. Greg is starting with heading for the Medical Frigate. Greg has played the combo version, R2D2 and C3PO, the one that you start with on the Tantive. I mean, we have seen regular R2D2 being played, but again, this is going to be the combo version. For Greg's 3 effects, we have Walkling, Strike Planning, and I must be allowed to speak, so pretty standard for Diplo. And let's see. Okay. So Gavin gets out his Impressive Enforcement that allows him to play grabbers for free, as well as have his anything that's canceled by Censor Altar go back into his deck. Greg plays Might of the Republic, so that way he can go get a Senator, a Guard, Masameda, Seer Tiara. I don't know how to pronounce episode 1 names. Greg ends up going and getting Leia Organa V. Okay. Got 4 players. Well, got a few players in GEMP watching. Got a few people on stream watching. So again, this is going to be game 2. Greg won the first game by 17. Greg gets out Golden Rod. So Gavin activates 6. And here we get some grabbers. Let's see if Greg goes out and gets his grabber as well. And there it is. Okay. Well, both players starting off with a few of their defensive shields. Gavin has 3 on the table. Greg has 2. So probably seeing that both players are going to be playing some sort of extra defensive shield grabber. Gavin's probably going to be playing, I can see him playing Cold Feet as well as Min. And I can see Greg probably playing Perimeter Scan to stop the Boba Fett Bounty Hunters, as well as Blizzard 4s. Okay. And Gavin has the bridge, so that's a good starting card. And it looks like he's playing Weemop just to go see what he has in his deck. Again, he's playing the 12 card start, so he doesn't get any of those effects on table, but he has 12 cards in his opening hand, which is pretty good. It just really comes down to the type of hunt down that you know how to play, or you decide on playing. Gavin is pretty familiar with Hunt Down. I've seen him play multiple versions, including a AAT tank version where he goes to Cloud City and just sits there with the tanks. Not saying that he is playing this version, but I've just seen him. That's one that he has played. But being that Gavin has a 17 card deficit to overcome to advance, maybe he's just playing with something he thinks he can win with. Maybe a few battles here and there to cause a lot of overflow, or maybe he's just playing something that he feels familiar with. Greg uses Strike Planning to go get Mon Mothma. So, and it looks like he's going to be grabbing a General as well. And he grabs General Aaron Kraken. So Kraken basically says that if your ability is only provided by scouts and spies, he adds a destiny. So he's not a bad card if you only have spies and stuff down on the table. But again, he draws destiny off his own. That's something that Diplo wants to do. Gavin doesn't do anything besides getting down the bridge and playing the Weemop. He does play a Sonic Bombardment, so I'm assuming that he got one in his opening or in his force pile. So he uses that to go get either the downtown plaza or a prison into hand. Most likely, we'll see him grab the 2-0 prison, the Cloud City. Brian, it would be a better night if Tom Brady decided to retire, but that's just me. Not too much. So he does go out and gets the security tower. It's a 2-0 site. Pretty good in a hunt down. So it's one of those. So normally a hunt down will play maybe 2 to 3 of those, plus 2 to 3 of the Weemops, just so they can get out their Twixes. There's 2-0s. Yeah, the lighting in my office is a little weirder than it was. Uh, I need to get another lamp in here, but the way that my the electricity and the light switches and everything are, it has to be on my left. But looks like so Gavin lost the downtown plaza from his hand, and Shaw lost Captain Commander Nara from his hand. So both losing cards from their opening hand to Visage. Okay. Greg is searching with his objective, seeing what he can get out. So we'll probably see him. If he can get an altar end, we might see him. I don't think he's going to be able to flip or transport the soul and tapes this turn. I'm guessing he wants to get the altar end just because it is a 1-0, and having any other sites on the table will open up avenues for Gavin to come down with any of his characters. Most hunt downs do run heavier characters or site stuff versus space, so that could have been in Greg's favor if he would have just got the Alderaan, but he ended up getting Mos Espa, so he's not going to go and try and get to choke Gavin with the amount of sites that he is, but because he's going to go out and get the farm. So Greg's getting his activation out pretty well, but again, he's going to be lots of places for Gavin to go down with Dark Jedi or any other characters that he has in his hands or in his hand. Yeah, I don't know what Greg plays. I haven't seen Greg play a Diplo. I maybe he's playing Jolson's version. Maybe he's playing something that him and Justin Desai and Steve Baroni came up with. I know that, so we'll see. But Diplo seems like it's really good, especially against a deck like I wouldn't say it's really good against Rops, but it gives Rops a chance, or it gives the licensed player a chance against Rops. So maybe Shaw figured that Gavin was going to be going with something like a Rops, but like I said, Gavin has been playing a lot of Hunt Down. So okay, so Greg gets out Cinnamon Mothman onto the Tantive for free. Probably going to see. Okay, so Leia comes down to the Dune Sea, allowing Greg to grab a card from his use pile. Maybe we'll see something like a barrier or some sort of protection for Leia unless she's going to move up to the Tantive. Okay, so Greg goes and out and gets Mantilian Savrip. So now if Gavin comes down to battle against Leia or even the Tantive, Greg can lose cards from his hand to satisfy battle damage and attrition. Greg does have the Chandrilla in his hand. So Greg's getting a lot of his activation out pretty early. So that's kind of a double-edged sword because he's giving a lot of stuff to Gavin, but at the same time he's getting his stuff. So I'm going to guess that Greg is figuring that he has some sort of protection against the beatdown with Leia. But so Greg does leave 3 cards in his force pile, so that's showing that he possibly has like it's a trap or multiple barriers. Okay, so let's see. So Viz just procs off now. Gavin lost Sniper Dark Strike, and Greg lost Gold Leader and Gold 1, both losses from the force or from their reserve deck. Personally, I think in this situation, Gavin lost the more important card, just because again, I don't know what Gavin's space package is. It's probably maybe it's just a Miss Hunter, maybe it's just a Zuckuss. So we'll see. Okay, Gavin uses the Weemop to go get a card with Pod Racer in his game text. I know Gavin has been and does like to run cards like Pod Racer Collision and, like I said, tanks. So maybe we'll see something a little different other than just another Weemop. But most likely it's going to be a Weemop here. And again, the only reason why he wants to do this is because he doesn't have anything to search his deck, really. So he gets another Weemop. Okay, and there's the security tower. And Blastdoor controls, interesting. So basically now Greg will not be able to use any of his Rebel barriers if he has any. So, but again, Greg is showing that he has 3 cards in his force pile, so he's broadcasting the "it's a trap" right now. So, if you're Gavin, being that you have 11 cards to work with and a 14 card hand, you're thinking about baiting somebody out like maybe coming down with anybody. Okay, so Vanny comes down to the farm, but yeah, the "it's a trap" won't stop a character it won't stop the battle, but it would protect Leia for at least a turn. Vanny uses his game text to grab a card with Vader in the title. Greg goes out, or Gavin goes out and gets the Mustafar site, Vader's Castle, 2-0. And here comes Darth Maul with his lightsaber, something that is not good against Leia. Or something that is good against Leia, sorry. Gavin uses Surface Defenses to get a card. He gets First Strike, so now it's gonna. So for Greg to use any interrupt in the battle, it's gonna cost him 1 force. So good thing that Greg kept the 3 force in his force pile. Greg gets out the aim high, so that way if Gavin decides to battle, he's paying 1 to retrieve 1. So I mean, he can opt not to retrieve, but I think Gavin would almost want to get the Sniper Dark Strike combo back, but with Vanny, he has the extra force, so he'll be able to battle, retrieve 1, and then he'll still have 1 in his force pile for Greg's turn. Yeah, it's smart for Greg to go down to the Dune Sea with Leia, just because it gets around the dark side portion of the text that says that they have to have ability 6 or higher. So Maul will be able to draw Destiny and swing, unless again if Greg decides to cancel the battle. Gavin will retrieve 1 before Greg was able to cancel the battle, though. So pretty good turn for Gavin. So retrieves the Sniper Dark Strike. Greg loses Commander Willard. Oof. Commander Willard's a pretty good card for Diplo. Oh, no cancel. Maul will swing at Leia. Leia, he draws a 3. So all he has to do is draw a 1 and Leia will be hit. Okay, Leia is hit. Let's see if she goes forfeit 0. So pretty early beat. I mean, if you're Greg, this is not something you want to see turn 2. But again, just Gavin swinging again just for extra measures. Draws Mara Jade with lightsaber. And his second card. Oh, so he uses Sith Fury to cancel the draw and take Mara into hand. So, oof, that's really good for Gavin. And draws a 6. And 4. So Imperial Barrier, interesting. So Gavin's also playing barriers. So I'm thinking unfortunately Greg was going to be relying upon the Mantilian Savrith and possibly a barrier, but once Gavin had the blast door controls, that threw that plan partially out the window. But we'll see what Greg has in his hand. Greg's hoping that Gavin draws low here. Okay, just wait to see if we're going to be getting Destiny or anything. Oh, Gavin draws the Gick for his Battle Destiny. So pretty low. So it's only 8 to Greg's 6. So Greg only has to lose 2, or I mean a low character from his hand. And Greg uses Mon Mothma to kick the Horn on Horn into his hand. So Greg still has to lose 2, and Maul is gone. But more importantly, Greg now has the Corn Horn to come down and possibly cancel the Visage, especially because Vanny is down at the farm. So expecting Greg to not get rid of the Corn Horn that he has. Even though he has the Mantilian Sabrip, so he still has the 2. So he loses Bright Hope from his deck, and it's a hit. So, and again, at this point, Greg's not worried about getting a win. It's more so that he just wants to lose by 17 or less. Well, he actually wants to lose by 16 or less, but okay, so Greg loses Projection of Skywalker, and Gavin loses. Let's see. So I mean, overall, that wasn't a bad turn for Gavin. He got a card. He got the Sniper Dark Strike back into his deck. He gets rid of Leia, but I mean, it is the cost of one of his Mauls. So I mean, he was clearly hoping for a greater overflow, just so Greg would have to lose cards from his hand with Mantilian Savrith. But being that he drew the 1, that was not a good. That was an unfortunate series of events for Gavin. Okay, so Greg starts his turn, activates. No battle order or battle plan on the table, so Greg gets a free drain of 1. Gavin loses Sonic Bombardment from his reserve deck. And again, I'm going to guess that we're going to see Cornhorn going down to the Hollow Theater to cancel Visage, and then we'll go from there. But first, speaking of Holo Theaters, remember to tune in on Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for another wonderful episode of the Holo Theater with myself and Jerry. We haven't determined who our special guest is going to be, but I know that we have a lot to talk about. We have the second round of the OCS as well as, again, the upcoming Jawa Cup, the upcoming Outrider Cup, and yeah, just future major events. So again, tune in on Wednesday and see what we talk about. In the meantime, Greg uses his objective to go get Alrod from his deck. He comes down with Hera to the farm. Hera will get a Destiny against Vanny. Vanny will also get a Destiny, both of them. And here comes young Skywalker as well. So, but Gavin has a barrier, so that would be 2 Destinies against Vanny, but young Skywalker is barriered, so wonder what Greg is going to do here. I mean, if you're Greg, you might be thinking just battle anyways, just to get rid of the Vanny and retrieve one. But not sure. I mean, I still might want to throw down the Corn Horn just to get rid of the Visage because you don't want to be losing one every on Gavin's turn, your turn. That damage would add up really quick. I mean, I know Diplo does run Tatooine Celebration and has the possibility of retrieving, but if Gavin has almost any sort of space package to come down and clear, say, the Tantive from Tatooine, that would hurt, especially because Greg has already lost the Gold Leader and the Bright Hope. So, see what Greg can do this turn. Greg's currently thinking. Now, if he does come down with another character who even adds at least one ability, he would still get 2 Destiny against Vanny. So we'll see. Yeah, Hera is pretty good. I mean, she works on the ground, she works up in space. All around super solid character. And Gavin uses Weemop to shuffle up his deck, possibly pull another Weemop from his deck. Okay, so up and here comes Hera, General Arian Kraken. So we did know that Greg had him. We saw him pull him with the objective. He comes down for 3 force. So Greg won't be going to cancel Visage this turn with Corn Horn, but looks like he is going to battle. He pulls the weapon display to make Gavin lose 2, and he is going to be drawing just, I believe, 2 Destinies. So yeah, Hera has to be a scout or a spy, so he only gets the 2 Destiny. So it's 13 power for Shaw and 2 power for Gavin. Greg gets 2 Destiny, and Gavin gets 1. I think if you're Greg, you want to lose Kraken over Hera, just because even with Luke, she would get another Destiny. So Greg gets the projection back. And he does pay 1 to get a projection back. And Gavin loses Blizzard 4 from his deck. That's not good. And loses a barrier. And Darth Vader with lightsaber. So there's one of his Vaders. I'm going to assume he's playing at least another one. So we'll see. Ooh. Greg has the Rebel leadership. But again, because Gavin has the impressive enforcement shield out, he gets to play his grabber for free. I never asked that question. So Gavin likes his grabber. So if an opponent just played an interrupt, use 2 fours to deploy on the table stack. Well, that card here, if opponent just drew Destiny or played an interrupt with the same card title as the card here, they lose 1 force. So that's a pretty good card to grab, being that I'm going to assume that Greg has multiple copies of that card of the Rebel leadership in his deck. So he draws a Chewy Protector for his first Battle Destiny, but he gets to cancel it and redraw because Hera says so. And he draws a 1. So back-to-back 1s for Greg. And he can't cancel the second one with Hera, but he does take Solo into hand with Mon Mothma. There's his second Destiny, Bail Organa. Personally, I would have rather have had the Bail Organa over Solo, but I'm not a world-class player like Greg Shaw. And his third Destiny is we're doomed for 8. So he draws big old 9 for Battle Destiny. Gavin has yet to draw, but he's staring down 14 cards. So I believe that would be an overflow of math. So Gavin draws a 4, so that's 6. Gavin is currently down by 10. And I want to say that Vanny is a forfeit of 4. So looking at least possibly a 6-card overflow for Gavin. Yep. So hopefully, we did see that Gavin did draw the Gick earlier, so we know that he probably doesn't have it. And he doesn't, so he loses Sonic Bombardment, Emperor Palpatine, another Blizzard 4, Kirkanos, Vanny, and Sith Fury from his deck. So 6-card overflow for Greg. Pretty good battle. I mean, he got 2 characters, he retrieved a force, and he was able to cause us another 6 force damage on top of the force from the first strike, as well as the 2 from weapons display. So for losing a card and retrieving, so basically Greg netted 0 and caused 9 damage to Gavin. That's pretty good. So Gavin loses Grand Moff Tarkin from his deck. Greg loses Perimeter Scan. So there is the Perimeter Scan. Unfortunately, it's in Greg's loss pile. So maybe Greg at this point is thinking about possibly trying to win, just because again, the life force for both players right now is 26. Gavin has 2 cards more in his hand than Greg, but at the same time, Greg has characters on the table, and characters on the table is pretty good. So we'll see what Gavin has. He can do this turn to 1, get rid of young Skywalker and possibly Hera. And again, because Gavin has Blast Door controls out, Greg cannot play Rebel Barrier. So if Greg has a barrier, it's just a useless card in his deck at this point. Greg did save 1 card, but I don't think there's any real evasion outside of, like, I mean, he might be able to use a dodge, but obviously he can't be, that there's 2 characters there. So we'll see what Gavin can do to get around the Hera and the young Skywalker this turn. Okay, so he uses Weemop to go grab a Weemop, check his deck, and then he uses Force Push to put 2 cards back to grab a card. Probably going to see maybe a Vader, maybe see a Maul come down against the Hera and the young Skywalker. Obviously, Maul would be better because not only does he get 2 swings, but he's not an Imperial to add a Destiny. So, okay, it looks like we got 14 people watching on GIMP, and we have another 14 on the chat. Nice. Glad to see a lot of people coming out to watch Greg and Gavin play. But only right now, Brian Spaeth is the only person who's actually talking in the chat. Hi, Brian. Way to keep up the chat, buddy. Okay, so we're still waiting on Gavin to take his turn. He does play the Force Push. Haven't seen him take a card yet, so we'll see what he does this turn. Okay, so he does put 2 cards back to gain and draws and gets a card into his hand. There goes the force push to his lost pile. Gavin already has 16 cards in lost pile. Greg has 9. But even though Hunt Down might have cards in the lost pile, it's still not out just because it has so many good characters, like the Darth Vader with lightsaber that Gavin just got from his deck with the Vader's Castle site. So even though Vader is over there, he'll be able to move during the move phase. But so, and there is the Maul that I was talking about. So now Hera, if Gavin does battle here, which I can assume that he's going to, he'll get a force back. Greg will lose a force, and Hera will not draw an extra destiny. Okay, so battle is initiated. Gavin does pay 1 to retrieve 1. Gets the force push back. Unfortunately, he does get the force push back, which is now can't be used. But yeah, it's a card. It's a Destiny 5 card. Greg loses Ahsoka Tano, a really good card from set 11. Maul swings at young Skywalker, draws a 4. And for the second Destiny, draws a 3, just enough. So young Skywalker is hit. And we did see Gavin retrieve the Sniper Dark Strike combo. So maybe we'll see it here. And that would be a really good beatdown on the Hera. But we have yet to see him play it. So Gavin plays Come Here, You Big Coward. So now Greg can't retrieve. Or initiate a force strain at a non-battleground location. Gavin swings at Hera, draws a 6. Yeah, she's hit. I mean, he doesn't have to draw the second Destiny, but he kind of has to because of the rules. And he draws a 5. So she's hit if I've ever seen it. Oh, and not only that, but Gavin has the masterful move and Endor Occupation to cancel Mantillion Savrip. So that card goes bye-bye. Now Greg can't lose cards from his hand to negate the battle damage. So depending on the draws, we might see a really good battle for Gavin. So it all comes down to the Battle Destiny draws, random chance. Now, Gavin does know what he is about to draw, and he does get the Vader out of his deck, so that's one less Destiny 1, but we'll see what we'll see what the both players do. Gavin is down by 4 power, so I don't want to say the chances of some overflow here are slim, but it's looking pretty low. There it goes, and there's the pesky 1. Gavin draws a 1, so unfortunately he won't win the battle, but he gets rid of 2 of those characters. And being that Maul will just be able to cover. So the site is now clear. Gavin can move Vader over, thus flipping him back, so now he doesn't have to lose cards to Visage. It was not a bad battle for Gavin. Okay, there goes Hera. And there goes the young Skywalker. So maybe we'll see Greg. Okay, so Greg will not... Well, actually, no. Greg would be able to retrieve by placing the Walkling out of play at this moment because Gavin does not occupy a... Oh, that's right. So after the battle, Gavin gets the first action during the move phase. So now Greg cannot retrieve by placing Walkling out of play. So smart move by Gavin. And we are now on to the start of Greg's turn. Greg also loses Captain Cassian from, I believe, his hand, but it's the end of Gavin's turn. So see what Greg can do to answer against the Vader. So, I mean, it's still a pretty close game. A lot of action, a lot of back and forth. So, But thankfully for Greg, he has the Tantive still out, so he'll be able to do some damage up in space. I think it's going to be hard to see Vader get beat down just because without the Savrith, Greg now has to even think more cautious. I mean, he had to think pretty cautious just because the Blastor controls was out, but now he has to think even more. But okay, so Greg has the Cantina from his deck. So Greg's got all of his sights and systems out. Yeah, but the problem is Vader still has that forfeit of 7, so it's going to take Lando plus maybe a Chewie because he needs a lot of power. So what I'm thinking Greg's going to do is I can see him going to the Cantina. He doesn't care about losing cards. Again, he doesn't care about losing cards. He just wants to get Gavin to lose as many cards as he can. He needs Gavin to lose at least 13 more cards, but I could be standing correct or incorrect. Here comes Ray down to Mos Eisley. So this is one thing. I mean, yeah, Padme and Lando would be really good, but here comes Ray. I mean, even with Padme at this point coming down against the Vader, that would be pretty good. And we could see maybe a Ray coming out of the use pile here because use pile pools are really good. So maybe you're right. I mean, maybe you are right about getting a beatdown, but personally, I mean, for me at least, I would have gone more of the route of trying to set up as much damage as I could. So I would have maybe throw down Ray and some other stuff to like survive in the Cantina while putting the Tantive over to Chandrilla and just starting to drain. But okay, so Captain Remus Antilles goes down to the Tantive. So now the Tantive is a little bit more protective and he can draw some Destiny off of it. So, but now if Greg does have a card, the card Dodge in his hand, that's a different story. If he has Dodge, he can move Ray away to either of the two sites and keep her alive out of the battle. So, I mean, that could be. I could see Greg doing that just because one, it blocks the drain, and I mean he still would lose another card to, or he would lose a card to first strike, and Gavin would get one back, but it would keep Ray on the table a little bit, and he would still be flipped. So that's possibly what Greg is thinking here, or he just deploys Sheerut down to the Cantina. So maybe we'll see Ray move over, but not sure. Okay, so Ray is battling Vader by herself. Greg does retrieve one, and Gavin will have to lose one. Unfortunately for Greg, he's still not flipped, but he should be able to flip as soon as the Tantive moves over to Chandrilla. Gavin loses the Emperor. Greg gets back Cassian. Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of is if he has the Odin Nestler combo, Ray will still have her forfeit. Gavin draws a 3. Wonder if Gavin has that Gick tracked. And he draws a 5. So Ray is hit. No Odin Nestler combo yet. I'm curious as to see what card it was that he drew for, or got off his use pile. So he draws a 5 for Battle Destiny, so that comes out to, so it actually is a 6 with Ray's game text. And he takes it into hand. Interesting. I mean, he'll be able to get the Bail Organa out of his deck next turn and put the card back, so smart. Gavin draws a 5. So Gavin wins by 1, but again, the site is cleared. So, and Vader has to go bye-bye, so that would flip Gavin back. So he would still lose 1 to Visage. So I'm going to guess that Greg actually doesn't care about canceling Visage just because now Gavin's losing to Visage as well. Okay, so definitely going to. I'm probably should see the Tantum move over. Greg flips over. I mean, that would be +1 to all of his battle destinies, but that would be +1 to his battle destiny total in any battles now. And if he wins the battle, he gets to retrieve 1. And there goes Vistage. So Gavin is at 10 cards. So right now, Gavin can essentially lose. If Greg can have Gavin lose 10 cards in his life force, plus the 4 cards in his hand, Greg would advance. But here comes that Mara Jade that we saw him take in the hand a couple turns ago with the Sith Fury. Greg playing Might of the Republic to go get Bail Organa. Bail is actually going to be a very a very powerful card in this matchup, being that there's no battle order, being that there's no battle plan. As soon as Bail gets on the table, all of Greg's 4 strains where he is an Alderaanian are going to be +1. Oh, this is not going to be. This might not be good for Greg. Gavin has the Mara, he has the Boba Fett, he battles, and Greg's only got 1 card in his force pile. I'm hoping he has a Gick here. Okay, so Gavin gets back the Emperor's personal, or sorry, not Gick. He's got the Hojix. He gets back the Emperor's personal shuttle. Greg loses Raditz. He uses Sheerwood's game text to peek at the top card of his reserve deck, and now he gets to move it where he wants it, but he puts it on top of his force pile. That's pretty smart. Yeah, he needs the Hojix. He needs Willer on the table, but we'll see what happens. Gavin swings, draws a 5. Shearer's hit. No swing and a miss for Mara. And she draws a 3. So 8 for Weapon Destiny. I believe 8 is greater than 4. Unfortunately, I don't have Justin Desai to confirm that. Okay, so Shearer's hit. And let's see, does Greg have any answers? Okay, so we're moving on to Battle Destiny. First is Ellis Hellrot for 4. So that brings Gavin to 15. And waiting on number 2, he draws a 1. Gavin's been drawing 1s like it's nobody's business today. Must be a case of the Mondays. But he's got 5 power, so that brings his total power to 16. Greg also draws a 1. Wow, everybody seems like they're drawing the 1 tonight. Grabs the Corellian Corvette, takes it into hand. So that's only going to get rid of 1 card for Gavin. I'm assuming it's going to be Fett. But again, I'm crossing my fingers that Greg has the Hojix. Otherwise, this game might be getting over pretty fast. Okay, so Gavin doesn't lose the Fett. Interesting. Greg is flipped back. But more importantly, let's see if he has a Hojix. Otherwise, that's 10 cards. He does have the Hojix. Okay, good. So this game will continue for Greg Shaw. I'm assuming that Gavin is thinking about grabbing the Hojix. He does know that Greg has a solo in his hand, but nope, he does not want to grab it. Now, Gavin draws. Draws 2. Let's see, will he draw 3? He draws 3. He's got 2 cards left in his force pile. So, draws number 4. Uh-oh, there goes Fett. And he draws his last card. Interesting. So now he's got to either figure out what to do with Fett. Chooses to sacrifice Fett. Bye-bye. Fett is now out of play. Interesting. I'm a little surprised he chose to keep the Fett on table and then put it out of play. But I guess he didn't want Mara to get beat down. Both players lose a card to Visage. Greg loses We're Doomed. Gavin loses We Mop. So both players loses 5. So we'll see what Greg has to do. But I mean, I think Greg's going to start off by activating and then going into his control phase and possibly draining for 1 and Chandrilla. Gavin loses a masterful move from his hand. So Gavin has to, he has to cause Gavin to get down to 16 cards in his life force. But before he can do that, he has to get rid of the 6 cards in Gavin's hand. So yeah, Gavin needs as many cards in his life force as he can get, just so he has a chance of advancing. But at the same time, he's got to have cards in his hand to work with too. He's got to get. So I know he's causing 1 damage to Greg a turn, but he's also dealing a damage to himself, so it's not good. So I'm assuming that Bail Organa is going to come out this turn. Maybe see Greg go down with Bail Organa and another character to Tatooine, throw down the Tatooine Celebration, and then bring over the Tantive, and then shuttling everybody up to Tatooine. If I had the cards, that's what I would at least do. But as I have said many times, I'm not a world-class player like Greg Shaw. And I'm sitting at home not playing in the OCS. I'm merely just commentating on it. Okay, so here comes the Carillion Corvette. So while we have a little bit of a break in the action, I hope everybody was able to see the new Rise of the Skywalker trailer tonight that debuted during the amazing football game that was the Patriots beating on the New York Jets. The only good thing that came from that was Le'Veon Bell didn't perform very well, so I beat the Batmouse in fantasy football. So again, Greg did play Bail Organa, and then he also used place Walkling out of play to retrieve We're Doomed, and there goes Solo. So Solo meets up with Bail Organa on a Carillion Corvette, just like in the movies. Greg draws a few cards. So he'll be able to drain for 2 at Tatooine, drain for 1 at Chandrilla, and they're both losing a card to Visage. So again, Greg just needs to. I keep saying it. Greg just has to have Gavin get down to under 17 cards in his life force, and then literally all Greg has to do is draw up. So. Okay, so here comes the Emperor to the Cantina. Guess the Emperor was thirsty. Gavin leaves 3 cards in his reserve deck. So we might see a battle here or something. Oh, and here comes Dr. E as well. So now we're getting into the train race kind of aspect. So Gavin will be able to do 4 a turn. Greg will be able to do 3 a turn. So so it doesn't look like Gavin's going to be battling against Greg, even though he has the 3 cards in his reserve deck. Gavin just drawing cards. I guess he doesn't hear the fact that he has to keep cards in his life force, or else he loses. So he currently has 15 cards in life force. It's not going to cut it. He's got to put cards back. I mean, he does have 9 cards in hand, but he still needs to get cards back into his life force. And the only way for him to really do that is either A, to have interrupts in his hand, or B, to start battling. And as long as Greg doesn't come down to the Cantina, I don't see Gavin having the stuff to battle like in another turn. So, and we're seeing both players lose the Visage. Greg has to lose first. So Gavin is currently sitting at 14 cards in his life force. And, I mean, he would have to put 3 cards back into his deck, which, I mean, it's possible, but... Okay, so Greg loses his trap, Gavin loses the Emperor's Shuttle. Both of those cards were from hand. So I'm going to assume that the Emperor is going to be staying there at the Cantina. Whoa. That wasn't good. So, again, I'm assuming that the Emperor is going to stay there at the Cantina. We might see Dr. E get off the table, though. I'm hoping that we see Dr. E get off the table. And again, Greg still has Corn Horn in his hand. So maybe we'll see like a Corn Horn and somebody else come down against Dr. E. Solo is on the table, so that would mean that the Hojix that is in Greg's lost pile could be used again. Oh, I'm mistaken. So Greg is actually causing 4 force of damage this turn. Captain Antilles is a Alderanian. I'm sorry. So Greg is able to drain for 4 this turn. Gavin losing Kylo Ren with his lightsaber. Ellis Halrot, both useful cards, but not in this matchup. And for the second drain, oh, that's right. Greg is not flipped, so his drains at Tatooine are -1. Gavin loses Masterful Move and Indoor Occupation from his hand. You would think that that would almost be a card that he would want to have in his deck, not in hand. And being that he can put it back into his deck, I'm a little surprised he just threw it away to a force drain. Maybe he's got better cards, but he's sitting at 14, and 14 is less than 17, so... And he would actually, to confirm the win, to make sure that he wins, he would have to actually get up to 18 cards. Because Greg, I mean, it would, if we went up 17, it would go to lost piles, and right now Gavin has more cards in his lost pile than Greg. Greg comes down with Luke Skywalker, The Last Jedi. So that's a pretty good card. Unfortunately, that won't flip Greg back, though, because Greg has to control a system and a site with a rebel. And unfortunately, Luke Skywalker is not a rebel. So Gavin does put back a Masterful Move combo by grabbing a Visage of the Emperor into hand. So that would back, if Greg comes down with the Corn Horn to cancel that Visage, he could play another Visage. But I don't think so. And that will flip Greg. coming down with Lando. So now that Greg is flipped, not only will he add 3 into his total battle destiny, but he will also be able to drain for 2 at Tatooine instead of the 1. So, not a bad turn for Greg. Probably going to see him end his turn here as soon as he gets to his. He'll bypass the battle phase, bypass the move phase. Probably won't draw a card, and we'll probably see him just use 1 to upkeep Lando. Oh, Brua and Owen Lars and Brua come down, so they're free. So take back everything I just said and wait for a second, and now it might go into effect. And yep, there we go. Greg loses, so he initiates the Visage. Gavin loses from the reserve deck. He loses to Force Push. Greg loses from Force deck as well, Might of the Republic, and he upkeeps Lando. So unfortunately for Greg, he's going to be taking 4 Force to his face right now. But fortunately for Greg, he has 2 systems and a site, whereas Gavin only has 2 sites. So let's see what 4 Force Greg will just lose. But again, looking at the life force, Gavin would have to get most of his hand back into his deck to be able to move on, to guarantee moving on. Okay, so see, drain of 2. Shaw decides to play an Interrupt from Lost Pile. He plays It's a Hit, thus canceling the drain at the Cantina. So Greg will not be taken 4 to the face. He'll just be taking 2. And Greg plays We're Doomed. So that would actually half the damage that he takes the rest of his turn. And now Greg only has to lose 1 to Mos Eisley. Gavin does grab the We're Doomed. So. Oh, P59 comes down. Gavin has 2 cards in his reserve deck. So there's Moff Tarkin. So he is only drawing 1 Battle Destiny. And he's still down by a lot in power. And the other thing is, Greg might actually be able to retrieve with Lando. And if he does, he would add a 5 to Lando's power. Well, actually, after he would lose to First Strike and then be able to retrieve. So Gavin retrieves Gavin retrieves. And actually, I think that might have been wrong, because he should have had to lose to First Strike. I don't think Greg lost to First Strike there. Unless... Yeah, I don't remember seeing Greg actually lose a card, so he should not have had the 5 there in battle. But, I mean, if he lost the card, it would have been the 5. Oh, thank you. You're right. Okay, so yes, he did retrieve the 5. Lando is hit. Greg has to lose 1 to P59. And then he draws a Sense for Battle Destiny. Oh, so Greg, so P59, so Gavin used P59, drew a 5, Then Shaw used Luke's game text to cancel it, causing a redraw, drew a 3, hit Lando, but more importantly, Gavin didn't have a second card to draw for battle, or a third card for drawing for Battle Destiny, so now he has to lose 23 in overflow. And actually, it's going to be 13. Gavin has 18 cards left, so he'll be down to 5 cards. I'm going to say that this game is over because he lost, unless he has the Gick. Okay, so he does have the Gick. Thankfully, it wasn't in his deck like it has been. So, but more, I mean, that was a pretty interesting turn of events. Luke just dominated. And now at the end of turn, so Greg still has 2 characters down at the site, so now he's still going to be able to do 5 damage to Gavin. Wow. So pretty good turn of events there. I just got sidetracked by looking at the chat, and I missed half of that battle. Thinking to myself, oh, Greg's gonna have to lose. He may only have Luke there by himself. Nope, he's got Luke and Owen Baru there. So saw Greg initiate the drain at Tatooine. Gavin lost surface defense and masterful move combo. Greg initiated the drain to Chandrilla, force push, and I have you now. We're gone, and then Greg initiated this last drain for the 5th force, and Gavin lost point man. Gavin is down to 11. I think they're going to end up finishing it out, but yeah, I'm thinking this game I'm calling this game in favor of Greg at this point, unless Gavin does something miraculous. He can't get any cards back, and being that Greg just battled, he's going to lose another card. Greg's going to get a card back, and yeah, oof. There goes a pod raiser collision from Gavin. Yeah, and I think a few of us were talking about Darkside mains. Unfortunately, are just not good right now. With all the things that Lightside has, yeah. So there goes Jin Urso. Gavin, it is a 5 for Shaw though, being that he has 3 sites. So Gavin is able to win the battle, but more importantly, Greg gets rid of the Dr. E combo. I was going to say, it might be a Euro card, but Gavin's Californian. He's literally the furthest in the continental United States as he can be from Euro. Okay, so that battle ends. Greg draws a card, and we'll see him pass a turn here. Oh, he draws 2 cards. And we'll see him pass a turn. Both players will lose to Visage. Gavin losing a Vader from his deck. Greg losing Rebel Barrier from his hand. And now we'll see Gavin. Yeah, Gavin hasn't seen a Vader in a few turns, unfortunately, and he just comments on that on the GEMP chat for everybody. But yeah, being that Gavin has only 8 cards back in his life force, and this is game 2. But while we're sitting here, I just want to congratulate Gavin for making this far. Looks like Greg is going to be advancing on to. He's either going to be playing the winner of the Justin Branch match, the Justin Branch Joe Olson match. We're waiting for them to play game 2. Again, Joe Olson won game 1 in a very, very back and forth match between No Idea and Court. But in the meantime, Gavin is not going to go down without a fight. He uses No Escape to take Vader back into his hand. So we'll see Darth Vader come down. Yeah, like I said, it was a Court versus No Idea, and that matchup is just so it can go either way. Okay, Darth Vader goes down to Mos Eisley, even though he hates sand. And Gavin just draws one card. And they recirculate. Vicious procs. Greg loses Rebel leadership from his reserve deck. And Gavin loses Darth Maul from his reserve deck. Okay, so here we go. Greg is about to cause a 5-force loss for Gavin. So there goes 2 at Tatooine. First is the Visage, and then second is Weemop. Drain a Chandrilla for 2. Sniper. And another Darth Vader. So we have seen, I want to say 3 Darth Vaders in this game, all of them being the Darth Vader with lightsabers. Interesting. And there goes the last card. So Dr. E combo is lost for Gavin. Gavin has 2 cards left in his life force, 0 cards in hand. Again, Greg can literally just draw up and end the game here. But no, he's going to bring down Jin. Jin Urso versus Darth Vader. And Greg decides to battle. Greg will not be retrieving, but Gavin will now have to lose a card. He loses a card from his force pile. There goes Imperial Barrier. Now, Gavin does get to draw Destiny. Greg should be drawing Destiny, but he doesn't have any cards in his reserve deck. So Vader will stick around for a moment. Bye-bye Jin, who Greg has to lose to, but at the end of his turn, Gavin only has Greg does not have to lose turn. He gets to play another Hojix. He has 2 Hojix in his deck. And now the game should be over with a Visage to end it. Very, very fitting. So again, Greg Shaw has beat Gavin to advance. So that is 2 players in our top 4. First, we had Bastian Winkelhaus, our reigning champion, or reigning world champion, our first time, a 3-time world champion. Oh, and he's gone back to back. He has made it to the top 4 of the OCS. Greg Shaw, our continental winner from 2019, and top 10 or top. I think it was a top 10 finish at Worlds this year. He's also made it to the top 4. So tune in to the forums, tune in to the Twitch channels for more OCS action. Again, Wednesday night, Jerry and I will be on the air doing our Holo Theater show. We'll have some exciting topics to discuss, maybe some swing and a miss, hits a hit. Who knows? You got to tune in to find out. Until Wednesday night, everybody, good night, and may the 4th be with you.